and I welcome you to this program in the series Cultural Encounters, Books That Have Made a Difference. In this series, we're bringing together scholars and their audiences in order to explore themes of encounter in literary works and contemporary cultural debates. Today, we welcome Alice Joubin, talking about recognizing in others their otherness and doing it through Shakespeare. Alexa is Professor of English, Women's Studies, Gender and Sexuality Studies, Theatre, International Affairs, and East Asian Languages and Cultures at George Washington University in DC. She's in receipt of many awards for her academic work and is widely published, including this wonderful book, which is Shakespeare in East Asia, a book on race, and a book on screen adaptations of Shakespeare, as well as many more. If any questions occur to you during this talk, please type them in using the Q&A button, not the chat button, but the Q&A button on your computer. Towards the end, I will put to Alexa as many questions as possible for her to answer. Please don't leave your questions to the last minute, as we get a bottleneck and they might not get asked. So thanks very much for joining us, and over to you, Alexa.
Thank you, Michael, for inviting me. I want to thank both Oxford and Georgetown for putting this event together. The world in its entirety is unknowable, except for fragmented, competing, and conflicting versions of it. Cultural encounter is a crucial step towards mutual and self-understanding, especially in a world divided along political fault lines. And at the center of cultural encounters is the notion of otherness, which only becomes meaningful in relation to self-perception. Drama builds on otherness, in particular, to offer embodied snippets of knowable worlds. Artists and audiences project their beliefs onto dramatic works to create hybrid worlds across cultures and history. Performances juxtapose multiple worlds, namely the fictional universe, actors' worlds, and the audience's worlds. As Jacques Derrida has pointed out, the relation between signifiers and the signified involves an endless chain of deferral. I would like to think through the idea of otherness in global performances of Shakespeare. Historically, Shakespeare's name and works have been integrated as an other within many significant world cinema and theater traditions. Shakespeare has become something that is both part of a local performance tradition and at the same time a usefully alien presence to inspire new works. Let's look at a few examples. James Ivory did a film in 1965 called Shakespeare, Wallah. It follows a traveling troupe of English actors performing Shakespeare in India. Shakespeare is both an icon that is familiar enough in local contexts for dramaturgical purposes and a stubbornly foreign presence that can be called upon for political agendas, as it happens in the film. Now, Shakespeare in Germany is another prominent example. There is a strong identification of Hamlet with the German national character since the 1840s. The recurring motifs depend crucially on the fact that Shakespeare is not German. He is a cultural other. Hamlet is a foreign ghost that stalks and aids the battlement of the formation of German identity. There are surprising twists in the history of global Shakespeare as well. Take The Merchant of Venice, for example. It actually was the most frequently staged Shakespearean comedy in the Middle East in the 20th century. It was often chosen as the play for inaugural theater events, such as those at the Iraqi Center for Theater and at Egypt's National Theater Troupe. Even though Arabic language criticism frequently interpret The Merchant as a cautionary tale about usury, which is forbidden by Islamic law. Prominent scholars, as you see on the screen here, such as Ibrahim al-Mazini, have sided with Shylock, viewing the character with empathy. So, in other words, the history of a location does not dictate entirely its reaction to particular texts. Beyond the merchant, British Kuwaiti bilingual playwright Suleiman Al-Bassam has created several adaptations. On the screen, you can see a stage photo of the Arabic version of his Al-Hamlet summit on tour to Tokyo in 2004, in which an Islamicist Hamlet confronts the suicide bomber Ophelia. Set in the Arabian Gulf, this adaptation critiques Western journalistic misunderstanding of Middle Eastern politics. Now, in Anglophone cultures, directors use different accents, hybrid performance styles, and multi-ethnic cast to amplify the idea that Shakespeare is a cultural other, something that is both familiar and exotic, and by implication, worth seeing again. In 2015, Cara Arts produced its adaptation of Macbeth that was set in a migrant Asian family. British-Kenyan director Jatinder Verma, who's artistic director of Cara Arts, uses the term Binglish to challenge the dominant conventions of the English stage. Here in the US, in 2016, the Oregon Shakespeare Festival produced Desdemona John's Winter's Tale with an Asian American cast. The romance was set in pre-modern China and America's Old West, combining both Asian American perspectives. This production presented the scene of exit pursued by a bear creatively. Upon arriving in Bohemia, Antigonus encounters what appears to be a large brown rock center stage. A series of lightning flashes shows first the face of a bear, followed by its claws, and eventually its body. The rock comes to life, turns around, and reveals itself to be a bear in the form of a Japanese bunraku-style puppet. One puppeteer can be seen driving the bear's head, while two others are in charge of each of the bear's front limbs. The bear devours Antigonus, who, quote, exits through its mouth. In 2018, the independent film company Shanti Production debuted their 12th night with a multi-ethnic cast. Sheila Atim's Black Viola, as you see on screen here, is one of several refugees washed ashore on a pebble beach. Director Adam Smethurst drew on the idea of otherness, noting that with the widespread rise of anti-immigrant populism and governments actively encouraging a hostile environment for refugees, she says, telling the story of the outsider surviving in an alien world on her wit became compellingly urgent. So I've noticed that performances give the airy nothing of dramatic text a place to call home. In fact, the notion of place features prominently in performances far beyond the basic question of where a story is set. Place provides an anchor for dramatic actions. All plays exist simultaneously in several dramaturgically construed localities. First, there's the question of where the story is set, basically where the characters live, where it is performed. You know, some venues have more symbolic significance, for instance, and the locales associated with actors' off-stage journey to where they are today. Attending to the significance of place enables closer examinations of the questions of belonging and otherness. Let's look at another example to look at how important place is in global performances. In David Kerr's A Midsummer Night's Dream, BBC 2016, we have a nightmarish space of a fascist regime enhanced with digital surveillance technologies. Actors and their characters orient themselves in the magical woods, a dream space where some social inquisitions are lifted while others are actually imposed. So it's not entirely liberated. Film audiences would have to go through a parallel process as they imagine social spaces that extend beyond the screen, as suggested by David Kerr's world making. So I am going to turn to a little bit to theory. And you can see on the screen here, you have Lysander and Hermia in this particular version, plotting their escape on a touch screen. All these are very important points for my talk today, as it will soon become clear, because we talk about portals, overlapping spaces, and I have a particular theory that is built on my forthcoming book, Contemporary Readings in Global Performances of Shakespeare. It's coming out this October. It's already available for pre-order on bloomsbury.com, simultaneously released as hardback, paperback, and ebook. And so this theory is heterotopia. It is a type of space that evokes other cultural spaces. Hetero means other, while topia, of course, is space in Greek. Heterotopia, created by the craft of world making. It anchors, enables, and endorses some characters' transformative experiences and self-discovery. The term was first used by Foucault in a lecture on architecture in 1967, and then mentioned again in The Order of Things in 1971. So the term heterotopia refers to cultural spaces that are transformative because of their contradictory or transhistorical ideologies. Foucault made a connected argument about utopia and regulatory mechanisms of prison. I'm eliding all that. I'm focusing only on heterotopia as a set of parallel spaces. The initial context of the notion was architecture and urban design, but heterotopia is useful in advancing our understanding of otherness. Michel Foucault uses the mirror as a metaphor to explain how heterotopia operates as a virtual space. The mirror is a placeless place. In the mirror, I see myself there where I'm not, in an unreal space that virtually opens up behind the surface. I am over there where I'm not, a sort of shadow that gives my own visibility that enables me to see myself there where I'm absent, says Foucault. As technologies of representation, the stage and screen work similarly to Foucault's mirror. They project and filter location-specific knowledge of otherness. To further illustrate the point beyond this comic of Foucault and multiple mirrors, I generated with artificial intelligence this image of pixelated mirror image with a person standing in front of it to further illustrate how heterotopia works. Let's take a look at another quote by Michel Foucault. He continues, it is also a heterotopia insofar as the mirror does really exist, and as it exerts on the place that occupies a sort of return effect. It is starting from the mirror that I discover my absence in that place where I am, since I see myself over there. Heterotopia exists in reality like a mirror that exists in reality, right? But it contains and evokes other spaces. As a parallel space, heterotopia holds up a mirror to other realities. And that's how the stage and screen work. They exist in reality, like the mirror, but they are a portal. The portal reminds audiences of their absence in the worlds of, for example, Hamlet or Macbeth. Audiences on one side of the dramatic mirror, seeing shadows of themselves by virtue of their vantage point and not being on the other side of mirror. Like the Foucauldian mirror, performance functions as a heterotopia, making the place that audiences occupy both distinct from the dramatic space and connected to other worlds within the performance. Heterotopia are worlds within worlds. Heterotopia expand and contract based on their tacit and explicit relationships to other places. The worlds of the characters, actors, and audiences thus collide, merge, and transform one another. And so Foucault writes that the heterotopia has the power to juxtapose in a single real place, several places, several emplacements that are in themselves incompatible. Thus, the theater brings onto the rectangle of the stage a whole series of places that are alien to one another. Thus, the cinema is a very odd rectangular room at the end of which, on a two-dimensional screen, one sees the projection of a three-dimensional space. Now it's time to dig deeper and look at multiple examples of heterotopia. I have nearly 1 slide per minute, so please follow along. If we have audiences tuning in on audio only, I will do my best to describe whatever is on the screen. First, this amazing film, Macbeth, is an example of heterotopia. This is a Malagasy film adaptation of Macbeth, directed by Franco-British director Alexander Abela in 2001. Shakespeare's early modern imaginations of medieval Scottish politics are transposed to a 20th century fishing village on the coastal dunes of Madagascar. Macbeth wages battles on the Scottish Highlands, but here the Macbeth figure named Macbeth fights and captures his enemy, Kidur, on a vast patch of white sand dune. Macbeth and Macbeth, they carry each other's echoes and shadows across cultural and historical spaces. Even though Macbeth is not a dialogue-driven film, the lady Macbeth figure, as you see here, who is named Vali Macbeth, wears an intercultural shawl that signifies multiple modern and ancient cultures. Functioning like a toga, her shawl has images of a Colosseum and a fleur de lis, linking Madagascar to ancient Rome and to the French royal family. Her costume becomes a gateway to other worlds, like Heterotopia. Now, there's another example, this time an adaptation of Hamlet, because Hamlet has this fair share of global shadows around the world and in many heterotopic locations. In Armenian-Iranian director Varil's Karim-Masihi's film Tardid, which means doubt. Medieval Elsinore is mapped onto a creamy mansion in a wealthy suburb in modern Tehran's cityscape. In one scene, a character, the main character, Siavash, the protagonist of the film, he hands a framed Farsi text that says to be or not to be on the wall of a dimly lit basement before contemplating the parallels between his life and Hamlet's. In another scene, as shown here, a poster of Hamlet adorns the wall behind Siavash. His friend is trying to give him good advice and saying that just because there are parallels, you should not become a Hamlet. Stop pursuing this. His friend doesn't think that he's onto something. He thinks it's just paranoid, thinking that the death circumstances for the death of his father are suspicious. This is an innovative approach that gives materiality and a sense of location, right? A sense of local relevance to one of the most famous speeches in English literature. Siavash says that I've never been very good at making decisions. He shares Hamlet's feelings of being trapped. And later, Siavash turns regularly to Hamlet for moral guidance as they investigate the cause of his father's death under dubious circumstances. As part of his investigation, Siavash even stages a performance of Hamlet at the wedding of his mother and uncle. The Farsi text of to be or not to be on the wall of his basement in Tehran evokes Hamlet Denmark, as well as contemporary Iran, where the film's protagonist is situated and trapped. It is beside the point to ask whether the aristocratic Siavash is a representation of the princely figure of Hamlet, or whether tribesman Macbeth qualifies as General Macbeth. More intellectually productive questions about otherness are Where and how do Macbeth and Macbethel meet, and why? How do these meetings change our own understanding of our time and place, characters and actors? They give meanings to the space they inhabit through social and symbolic practices. You may think it's a cliche that drama transports us to a different time and place, but Heterotopia builds upon and transforms the fictional universe and our own world. Here's another example. This movie is called Baraka Meets Baraka, 2016. It's by Mahmoud Sabah. This is a rare romantic comedy film coming out of Saudi Arabia. The love story alludes to Hamlet's tentative relationship with Ophelia. The film follows the male Baraka. See, the conceit is that the two people in the couple that have the same name. The male Baraka, a middle-class bureaucrat, and the female Baraka, a feminist fashion vlogger. The pair struggles against strict conventions of their society. The male Baraka is shown living a rather dull life, issuing citations of minor offenses as he walks around modern-day Jeddah, while the female Baraka has a livelier personality. She thrives in the virtual online space. Now, interestingly, when not working, Baraka performs as part of an amateur theater troupe in one scene. Unable to find women to participate in their production, they're doing Hamlet. Baraka's troupe had him play Ophelia. He appears in drag, thickly bearded. Instead of embracing his stage role, Baraka looks dejected in his blonde wig and green and teal ball gown. In an earlier scene, backstage, he strains to zip up the costume. He is coached on how to simulate having breasts. On the theater stage within the film, Baraka plays the mad Ophelia in monotone. The scene serves both as comic relief and a somber reminder of Saudi law that prohibits women from performing with men. The camera, with a frontal shot with deep focus, follows Baraka as moves laterally on a small stage, handing out flowers, telling an off-camera audience, "That's for remembrance. Pray you love. Remember." Inspired by his involvement in theater, Baraka later has a dream in which he plays Hamlet alongside his lover who plays Ophelia. The stage in the film is a heterotopic space that connects us with Western values and with Hamlet. It is also set apart from Jeddah as a dream space for Baraka. Further, Saudi Arabia and its draconian laws. So the draconian laws of Saudi Arabia actually serve as a framing device to tell a story of entrapment, a story that parallels Hamlet. The interplay between these worlds informs the dynamic of global performances. The vitality of global performances derives from the clashes and synergy of overlapping heterotopic localities. And now it is time to delve deeper into our first case study. I'll spend a little bit more time with this particular one. Yukio Ninagawa's Japanese language high concept touring production of Hamlet turns the art of theater making inside out through its meta-theatrical conceit. The production opens with actor characters warming up, running their lines, and touching up on their makeup. They mill around on a set that represents the backstage of a theater where the actor characters both prepare for and stage Hamlet. The two-story set consists of dressing rooms with privacy curtains, complete with lighted mirrors, photographs, and bouquets. The lower level is a common dressing room area for everyone, while the upper level is reserved for leading actor characters' individual dressing rooms. This backstage space is now upstage. This set doubles as rooms in Elsinore Castle once the play Hamlet begins. The action of the play takes place in the Heterotopia that consists of gateways, dressing rooms, and castle chambers all at once. Of particular interest is that dressing rooms are worlds unto themselves, but also points to other worlds once their doors open. think about it. Dressing rooms are a in-between space, right? That transform those who pass through them. You go to the dressing room in order to become someone else. Actors walk into dressing rooms as 21st century artists and emerge as characters in medieval Denmark, for example. So the creation of this backstage as playing space is part of Ninagawa's world-making strategies to both deconstruct and amplify the artifice of performance. The dressing room mirrors are quite Foucauldian in the sense that they, as devices of heterotopia, juxtaposes self-image with stage image. Self-image against stage image, and they juxtapose visible and invisible worlds. Let's take a look at the next. Here you see, in the middle of the play, you have the billowing curtains. Thanks to electric fans, these curtains add a sense of unease and mystery. Each dressing room seems to be a gateway to unknown worlds, and of course you don't know who or what would be behind the curtains. Audiences intrude into actor characters' supposed backstage space, which is connected to Hamlet's fictional world, which in turn resonates with issues of intentionality in communication in audiences' worlds. Some passages in Hamlet are thrown into particular relief by such a setting. Let's think about some of these quotes. Hamlet's railing to Ophelia about her, quote, painted face. God hath given you one face, and you make yourself another. And of course, Hamlet's assuming an antidisposition to confound the court. These lines from Hamlet ring true, metaphorically and literally, as they were made in a dressing room setting. Also juxtaposing other fictional and real worlds is the life-sized tiered hinados. I shall explain that in a minute. So they have this tiered hinado display in the play within a play scene where Hamlet tests the conscience of his uncle as part of his investigative project. Dressed up to look like human-sized dolls, the actors participate in the heterotopia that signifies at once the court in Heian era Japan, rituals on the girl's day in contemporary Japan, Hamlet's Denmark, and the stage within a stage. The audience attention was redirected from the representational aspect of theatrical realism to the presentational aspect of meta-theatrical narratives in Ninagawa's Heterotopia. And so this is part of the tradition that began in Heian, Japan. It continues to be practiced today, especially on the girl's day. Essentially, these are dolls, and they are meant to carry away bad luck so girls can grow up healthily. And they often set them afloat in the river. You can begin to see the connection to Ophelia. It's entirely unintended, but just a beautiful cultural parallel. So these are real-life hinados, and so we're set on a tier like this. And you can see the parallel in the play. They are human-sized dolls. So here in front of you is actually the mousetrap scene. The traveling players are visiting Elsinore. They put on a play to help Hamlet determine if his uncle is guilty of murdering old Hamlet. The player king and player queen, they descend slowly from the top of the doll tiers to initiate the meta-theatrical performance of the murder of Gonzago. In particular, Kensuke Tsunahara took on the cross-gender role of the player queen in the 2015 production at London's Barbican Centre. A folding fan in hand, he played the queen in the kabuki style of onagata, or female impersonator, and delivered her lines in a sing-song chanting manner. They act out the remainder of the play within a play in aggrandized pantomime. The tiered hinados displays serves as a mirror image of three distinct spaces. First, Claudius' corrupt court. Secondly, the social space of the fictive murder of Gonzago, which is witnessed by characters within Hamlet. And then thirdly, an ordinary Japanese daily artifact, the hinados, now writ large, the doll tiers now populated by life-sized dolls. So this is an excellent example of heterotopia in operation in global Shakespeare. The second case study comes from Hong Kong. Again, you can see multiple cross-references. So I wanted to emphasize that the concept of heterotopia enables us to examine deep connections among adaptations that seem unrelated at first blush. Many adaptations blend cinematic and theatrical modes of presentation. Ninagawa is well known for the cinematic quality of some of his stage productions. He often used semi-transparent screen doors as screens on stage. And so the second case of heterotopia here, part of the focus is not just different locations or overlapping locations, but actually genres. So we have a bit of a tug of war between theater as a medium and cinema. The Hong Kong comedy film, on the left, One Husband Too Many, directed by Anthony Chan in 1988, follows a couple aspiring to introduce Western culture to backwater Hong Kong. They wanted to do this through the iffy performance of Romeo and Juliet. Within the film, the rustic makeshift stage plays a key role as a dramatic device and a venue where cultural values are negotiated. The stage performance is itself a parody of Franco Zeffirelli's 1968 period drama film of Romeo and Juliet. It is also a satire of the canonical doublet and tights style performance that was prevalent on the stages of China and Hong Kong in the 1980s. During their performance of Romeo and Juliet, the on-screen audience's booing interrupts the show. You will see in the video clip that is coming up, the unappreciative crowd starts its own sideshow of tribal violence. When physical fighting breaks out, the couple becomes persecuted lovers, both on and off stage.
冰冻的罗密欧啊，你要我脱下这贵族的丑恶外衣，温暖你的胸膛吗？
有好戏看嘞！
你为我而殉情，我该怎么办？我该怎么办呢？
阿健，办他了！办健了，快点点！办他了！谁说办他？我办谁？谁敢再吵我扁谁？阿志，是不是你在吵啊？抓到，赶紧别再落来！阿高，慢点干净，干净啊！拍手，不拍照腿，拍，不准拍！是阿才，你当我是阿才，这不是你气笑的所在啦！刘大便，你是不给80公面子！刘大便，刘大便是你叫的，你还要一小便呢？哈！
不要这样嘛！现在演的是罗密欧与朱丽叶，又不是演线头牌通鲁丸对四五丸。我只是想把。
The disrupted audience storms the stage and comes face to face with the henchman. Using a low angle, the camera moves between two rows of men lined up like two American football teams ready to charge. The standoff is depicted in a comedic manner with the men twitching their pectorals to make them bounce up and down. This is meant as an aggrandizing gesture before the fight begins. The actor playing Romeo says, "Now it's really Romeo and Juliet." And he finds himself sandwiched between the two gangs. Perhaps the on-screen audience members have now appreciated too well the tragedy about teen exuberance and violence. They have ingested a spirit of feud. Pursued by a torch-bearing mob, the couple has no choice but to flee the scene, carrying with them their idealized form of English theater. So Romeo and Juliet, in a way, ends up playing out in real life. Heterotopia pushes back against the illusion of Shakespeare's ubiquity and universal meanings by pluralizing the artistic positions and political positions across and within different communities, characters who are betwixt and between worlds and alliances, such as Court Cleopatra. Think about Viola in Twelfth Night, Edmund the Bastard in King Lear, and the Changeling in A Midsummer Night's Dream. Characters like this are given new arcs when they are interpreted as mixed race or queer. Gender roles in Romeo and Juliet and Hamlet, for example, are reinvented to tone down misogyny or to propose a feminist interpretation. Just a couple of examples. Mamoru Hoshi's movie, University of Laughs, 2004, in which you have a protagonist who's faced with a wartime censor in Japan. He's trying to adapt Romeo and Juliet, but was told to strip all Western references. He ends up writing a parallel play that actually is a better adaptation of Romeo and Juliet, and is presented as a comedy. In Korea, we have Fantasy of the Girls, directed by Jung-min Ahn, 2016. A group of high school girls, they are staging Romeo and Juliet, but also having strong feelings for one another. So it's both a queer lesbian story, but also a meta-theatrical Romeo and Juliet. In the US, more recently, we have bold reimaginations of gender roles, such as Karen Main's Rosalind, which is all about Romeo's ex in Romeo and Juliet. It's the backstory. Claire McCarthy's Ophelia, as you see on the other side, 2018, takes a similar approach. It tells the unknown, untold story of Ophelia. The idea of heterotopia as parallel and overlapping worlds highlights the inherent diversity of global performances and helps us push back against unproductive divisions between the center and the peripheral, even as we seek to understand otherness. Artists often disagree on the meanings of Shakespeare's plays. What they do have in common is their effort to plant new ideas along well-trodden paths and to blaze new trails through long-abandoned territories. Performance styles borrowed from other cultures can help retool some plays for artistic innovation or socially reparative purposes. The heterotopia of theater and film not only create channels between geographic spaces, but also connect different time periods. To quote novelist Minae Mizumura, if we walk through the doors of other languages and cultural spaces more often, we will be blessed with undreamed of landscape and a more inclusive vision. Heterotopia as method helps us understand rather than flatten cultural otherness and the dynamic interplay between cultures.
Alexa, many thanks. Mike, many thanks.
Thank you very much, Alexa. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Bye-bye.